everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 17 of Blue Lock. Yeah! I wore this shirt to work today, and I realized about halfway through the day, I'm like, I look like a referee. So it's like, well, this will be perfect. I'll just watch Blue Lock tonight, and then I'm serving up referee realness. And speaking of patterns, we're going to talk about in this episode here, because episode 17. So, when we last left off, Isagi and Nagi and Barou are on a team, and they're about to face off against Reo and Chigiri and Kunigami. What a matchup! No pressure. No pressure. It's just that one team's going to lose, the other team's going to gain a member from it, and if Isagi's team loses, guess what? His buddies ain't picking him. They're gonna pick Nagi. So it's like, oh shit. So there's quite a bit at stake with this game, and I don't know how it's gonna go. I really don't. I could see the show going a lot of different ways. I don't think that Nagi and Isagi and Barou are going to lose. I think they're going to win somehow, but the question is going to be, how do they win? And then if they win, who do they pick? So that's the big question, and that's going to be rather interesting because all three of them want different people. So, so that kind of leaves us in a very precarious situation. So before we get to this episode, though, I do have quite a few comments and things to talk about, so this may be a long introduction. Geen is catching up on episodes, and they posited back around episode 14. They were like, so, are these guys going to school? Because they bring up a good point. Geen's like, where's the high school? What are they doing? I don't know. I am assuming that either this is during the summer months when they're off of school, I guess, but they've been there over a month at this point, right? Either it's during summer or they're all third years maybe. And, you know, your third year, you usually like study for exams in Japan, as far as I believe. You studied for exams to get into university. So maybe they're just all banking on getting into this, you know, into Blue Lock and then playing for the national team. So they're not really concerned about getting into a university at this point. Maybe Henri has contacted all the high schools and been like, make this exception if they choose to do this. If they come back, then let them back in the school to finish out the year. I don't know. Maybe they have supplemental courses. It's a very good question, and I would be curious down in the comments below if the manga or the show gives an explanation, then I don't want to know. But if there is no explanation, I kind of do. Or if it's something very simple, if it's not going to be something that is going to be plot relevant and thus would be a spoiler, I think it's okay in the comments to talk about it. But if it's something that's going to be a plot element later on, then I would like to be kept a secret about it. But that's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. Seppi commented about the in different stages of shipping, our couples that we see on screen kind of represent different elements of that. So, for example, Kunigami and Chigiri, kind of, if you view them as a ship, they represent kind of the starting out relationship where the couples are just getting to know each other. They're just feeling things out. They're clearly there's something there, but they've not fully explored it yet, which I think is a nice apt way of describing Kunigami and Chigiri. And then you have Reo and Nagi, who are like an established relationship that's maybe going through some hard times right now. But they're like established in their relationship in that they know each other, they're devoted to each other, there's clearly emotions there, it's very passionate, it's very emotional, kind of that situation. And then you have Bachira and Isagi, who I like the way that Seppi described this. Seppi, you're worming your way right into my heart, talking about them being like an established couple where they're besties and they're lovers. They have the idea of a couple. They feel like they've been together a long time. But what I liked about it was that there is a calm and security about Bachira and Isagi. And especially in the last episode when Bachira is like, no, Isagi will be here. You'll see. I was like, that gave me so much hope. I'm like, Bachira's not moving on from Isagi. He's waiting for him to come. And I talked about this in the Discord because a lot of people are like trying to ship. They're like, oh, is Reen and Bachira going to be a thing? And I was like, no. I want to multi-ship. I just don't think Reen is good with any of them. I feel like there's a better ship for Reen. We're just not there yet, right? But my thing is that I kind of view Bachira as the healthy version of what Reo should be. And we talked about a little bit last episode that Batra is so not concerned, but Batra is so sure that Isagi's going to be there and he knows he's going to come. He's like, it's just a matter of time. I have faith in him. Batra has faith in Isagi and that he's going to come to find him. Reo kind of feels like there is no faith between him and Nagi anymore, even though Nagi expected Reo to be like Batra, and that's not what's happened. So we'll see how that goes. Anne talked about Nagi getting yelled at by Isagi in episode 16, kind of resembling Henri and Ego. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, the dynamic between Nagi and Isagi in episode 16 was kind of like Henri and Ego's, where Henri was like, are we gonna do this thing? And Ego's like, not now, Pinky. I don't ship Isagi with Nagi. I feel like they're more bros. I ship them with their respective couples. But I do love their friendship. I jokingly like that Isagi is kind of like trying to worm into Barou's heart, and Barou's like, no, I don't want it. He's being like all tsundere. There is a part of me that kind of wants Isagi to win over Batra, but I just kind of to become part of the harem. And then Wim had a lot of things to talk about, which Wim is our moderator for Blue Lock, and I appreciate it. I liked this concept of Nagi having kind of this like fairy-like aura. It gets kind of pink in the previous episode, in episode 15, and it kind of feels like Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen a little bit, which is interesting. And then, which is very interesting because Barou and Nagi are the same voice actors as Mahito and Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen, so that's a very curious dynamic. And then I hadn't thought about it like this, but Barou, Wim kind of associated them with Kageyama from Haikyuu, and I never thought of it this way, but their personalities are quite different, but both Barou and Kageyama have this kind of like lonely genius mentality, where they both, it's kind of like Kageyama at the beginning of Haikyuu, you know, he can't get along with people on his own team because he feels like they're not up to his level, and Barou's kind of experiencing that as well. And so I liken that Isagi kind of has to be like Shoyo from Haikyuu in this case and be like, oh, no, we can work together. This will work. In Haikyuu, Shoyo eventually wins over Kageyama and is like, oh yeah, no, we can play together. I can match your style. I'm complimentary to you. We'll fit together like a puzzle, right? Kind of like Blue Lock. And that kind of makes me like somewhat want to ship Barou and Isagi a little bit, because I want Isagi to like get into that little tsundere heart and be like, no, we can work together. You'll see. But maybe Isagi will give Barou his crown like Shoyo gives Kageyama his crown. That would be very interesting. And also they pointed out that Naruhaya in the flashbacks of episode 15 was wearing a number 11 jersey just like Isagi. In any other sports anime, Naruhaya could easily be the main character, but that's not Blue Lock. So what do we do? The last thing I wanted to share is something that Wim sent me in the Discord. And it is this official art that's come out, and it's our main men here, which I'm glad we're down to it. Poor Jujubee and Toki didn't get to make it. Poor woe is them. But it is Barou, it's Kunigami, it is Bachara, it's Isagi, it's Chigiri, it's Rin, it's Nagi, and Reo. And they're all the colors of the rainbow, except Nagi. Nagi's just gray silver, which kind of matches his black hole kind of cosmic thing. I like how they all look the same height, even though they clearly are not the same height. That's kind of fun. And they all look like kind of the same build. Barou looks especially like a baseball catcher there with that look. And I have been publicly shamed. Everyone's publicly shaming me on Discord because I don't care for Barou with his hair down. They're like, what delusion are you living in, Romania? How can you deny us the Barou hair down supremacy? And I'm like, it's just, I like him with the updo, and it looks like, I'm not saying it looks greasy, but like, look at this official art. Look at Chigiri and how luscious his hair looks. Look at Chigiri's hair and how luscious it looks. It looks like it's perfectly conditioned. It looks like it's bouncy. It has volume. It's va-va-voom. I mean, even Reo has like a little bit of that kind of waifish like stringiness to it, but stringiness isn't a good word, but it's got like a waifish, wispy quality to it. And then you have Barou that looks like he put too much product in it. I don't know. It's not for me. I mean, the fan art makes Barou with the long hair look 20 times better than the official art of Barou with the long hair. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe it's because I like Kuro with his hair up rather than his hair down. Maybe that's it. Who knows? But All of them they basically look like Starburst and Skittles up here. But they have these little corsages pinned onto their suits, and each of the flowers has a different meaning. And I thought it was interesting how each of their vests are a different pattern as well. Like I've got pinstripes. Nobody here has pinstripes except Kunigami. Kunigami has orange pinstripes. I thought this was interesting. So you have Kunigami who has like orange pinstripes. Barou has like a crosshatch design. It looks like Batra is like a big, what is it, like blue chip checkers, blue checks. I feel like that's it. It's not quite gingham. It's a little bit bigger, like, oh, there's a specific style, but it's like a blue check. And then you have Rayo's and Isagi's are kind of more gingham a little bit and plaid. And then Chigiri's is like diamond shaped. And Nagi's is houndstooth, which I love houndstooth. So Nagi's is great. And then Reen is just plain. No pattern for Reen. He's beyond patterns. He's better than patterns. Or maybe the pattern's so faint that I can't see it. But anyway, the flowers that each of them have pinned to their corsages have a meaning to them. So I thought that was interesting. So Barou's is the red desert rose. Roses have thorns, right? And it symbolizes wealth, prosperity, abundance, fertility, good fortune, love, hope, resilience, and death. Resilience and death and prosperity all seem to time to Barou, and the word fertility being tied to it just makes me think that Barou belongs in an Omegaverse BL. So my mind's been in the gutter ever since reading that, so now your mind can be in the gutter too. Especially with that stupid maid additional time that we got in the last episode. Kunigami's is a dandelion. Not surprised. A dandelion is for hope, healing, strength, resilience, perseverance, transformation, and happiness. I feel based on the OP, where Kunigami seems like he's struggling against Barou, that there's going to be some transformation on Kunigami's side where his character changes. We'll see. Maybe that means he doesn't get picked and he has to go through like a big change after his character isn't selected by Isagi and them. Who knows? Batra's is a daffodil. Of course it's a daffodil. Rebirth, new beginnings, creativity, energy, vitality, resilience, good luck, prosperity, forgiveness, and memories. I feel like all those things kind of attach themselves to Batra. Like Batra's, the memories, his energy, his vitality, but also he's on a new team. So there's been some rebirth there. There's new beginnings. Batra, no matter how much he believes in Isagi, and no matter what his end goals are, Batra is a very adaptable person. He seems like he adapts very quickly to any new scenario that he's in, which for a king of adaptability and a genius of adaptability, that might just be perfect. Right? Isagi is a blue iris, which I like a lot. It represents hope, faith, wisdom, courage, strength, admiration, clarity, and kindness. That fits his character a lot because he has this strength, but he's also kind. I like that. Chigiri is a sabo? I'm not used to this flower. It means bravery, strength in the face of suffering, which his injury, and then love, affection, attraction, beauty, and passion, which he's called princess and he's beautiful. Seems like it fits, right? Reen's is the white lily, which lilies are poisonous, so do with that with what you will. But they represent purity, innocence, rebirth, fertility, get yourself in that Omegaverse fanfiction, hope, love, commitment, dignity, and remembrance, which he constantly wants to battle his brother. He's remembering a possible feud between them. That could be. He's possibly reinventing himself, to make himself stronger. I'm surprised that rebirth isn't with Isagi, since he kind of reinvents himself as he adapts. And then purity and innocence. I mean, Reen, as far as being pure, Reen is very much like this, what you see on the surface, it seems like what you see is what you get. Now, whether that's true or not, we'll see. Rayo is a purple columbine. Columbine is Nagi's birth flower from May 6th. Of course it is. Someone in the comments in the Discord was talking about how they didn't see a lot of BL aspects in Blue Lock, and I was like, are we reading the same watching the same show? Which, look, I'm a shipper. I could find a way to ship any character with any character. You just give me 5 minutes and I'll come up with a way to do it. And if you're not a shipping person and you don't want to think that Blue Lock has a lot of BL-esque subtext, that's fine. I'm fine with that. But if there is any BL subtext in Blue Lock, it is with Rayo. Like, there is no denying Rayo loves Nagi. And there's like no, now whether Nagi loves him back the same way, we can argue all day. But Rayo, I mean, the show pretty much hits it on the head, calling him a maiden, giving him Nagi's flower from his birthday as his own, his whole jealousy streak. I'm like, yeah, no, Rayo's in love with Nagi. But it represents fortitude and aspiration, courage, risk-taking, endurance, perseverance, good fortune, his family, faith, peace, harmony, and determination for victory. Those are all describing Rayo's attitude right now, so fair. And then Nagi's is a white oleander, which is Rayo's birth flower of August 12th. And I'm like, okay, at this point, I can't ship Nagi with Isagi or anybody else because him and Rayo are literal soulmates. They just haven't acknowledged it yet. And it represents beauty, resilience, desire, purity, destiny, understanding, change, freedom, growth, death, caution, complicated nature of love and romance, and endless love. If that doesn't describe Nagi and Rayo at this point, I don't know what does. Right? Oh my God. But yeah, those are amazing. I've really been into the official art and the merchandise. I've not seen a lot of merchandise with Blue Lock because obviously we're avoiding spoilers, but I do really appreciate all of the symbolism and the time that they take for the official art for Blue Lock. It's really good. For some reason, sports anime, they just have the best official art for its characters. I'm like, I don't know what it is, but it's always really good. No matter what sports anime I've looked at, they're like casual clothes. Their like artwork is always so much fun. And I'm like, why is it just sports anime? It baffles me. It baffles me. So yeah, those are my comments. I've talked for over 15 minutes. I think that's enough. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. I have to tell myself, I'm like, it's going to be okay. I just don't want Isagi to leave. I always feel for the main character of sports anime. When the main characters of sports anime are made to suffer, it's always very sad. And it always makes me kind of like nervous on their behalf. And I get more nervous than the characters are in the show, right? But you know what? Isagi is not alone in his struggles. There are other sports anime main protagonists who suffer a lot and have to overcome. And if there's one show that does it, it's my favorite sports anime, which, well, you'll see right here.
In sports anime, it's important that you have someone to help you balance. Someone who can take your crazy and handle it or dish it right back out. But some characters don't want that anchor and they end up all by themselves. The question is, can they survive in a situation like Blue Lock by themselves? Well, in Ace of the Diamond, that definitely can happen, but Blue Lock's not Ace of the Diamond. However, when you're done with Blue Lock and you want something that's not quite as isolating, go check out Ace of the Diamond and see for yourself. Now, back to the reaction.
You thought I was going to forget. But I didn't. I didn't. Yes. No, Isagi's struggles remind me a lot of the main character of Ace of the Diamond, so I can empathize. But all right, I'm excited. I hope you all too, but we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right into episode 17 of Blue Lock and see what we get. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I absolutely love Blue Lock. It's so much fun and so much hype, and it does things that kind of subvert what you think the main character is going to say or do, but it finds a way to say it that it really makes sense, and you're like, no, I totally get that. Yeah, because with a character like Barou, what can you do? What are you going to do with Barou? That is the big question, and I think that Isagi finally goes, screw it, I'ma eat him. So we're going to talk about Barou. And we're going to talk about what to do about him, right? So we have a new set of 3 characters that have made it to the second stage. Yay! So we're going to put them up here. I'm so glad that Raichi made it through. Yay! And Gin. I'm so glad that Gin made it through as well. And we have the Wakima, one of the twins. Yes. I mean, I think Geen would honestly get along with anybody. I think Geen, a poor Geen, when he finds out that Naruhaya is gone. Sad days. But I feel like Geen would get along with anybody. He's just like, oh yeah, everything's fine. But Raichi needs to have his ego stroked just a little bit. And I love when Kim was like, you're just so amazing. You were amazing, wonderful. You had you clearly led your team to victory. And Raichi's like, go on, say more. So, this, again, we've talked about Attack on Titan and how this series is a little Attack on Titan-esque quality. The idea of eating your enemy is something that happens in Attack on Titan. Quite frankly, it even happens when you eat your friends. So, or family, right? There is kind of a voristic quality with the idea of devouring someone. It's a little vory. I'm like, okay. It reminded me of, there's a series, a Western comic series called Chew. I only read the first volume of it, but it was really interesting. It was about a detective, like an amateur detective or apprentice, and he had this ability that he could see memories by eating like flesh from someone. It's creepy and vory and gross, but he could like see memories of people by like eating part of them. It was like there was a cannibalistic quality to it that was kind of disgusting, but it was an interesting premise. It was really creepy, but that kind of reminds me of this a little bit. Not necessarily Isagi actually eating people, but we'll talk about with Barou, because Barou is an interesting nut to crack, right? So we have our three. I love Kunigami and Chigiri doing they do like the meeting pose, like the meme where it's like the two men are like shaking hands. It's like biceps and everything. Yeah, I definitely see the Chigiri and Kunigami ship. I'm living for it, right? I love that Chigiri and Kunigami are developing their bro-ship. Their romance is blossoming, and Ryo's just sitting here like disassociating and trying not to think about Isagi. What's so hilarious is that Ryo cannot get over the fact that Nagi is with Isagi, but what's interesting is that you have a character like Chigiri, and Chigiri has always kind of looked up to Isagi in terms of like evolution, and we saw that with his like little mini arc back in the first selection, but it's this idea of evolving to match. It's kind of like when Isagi started doing all the extra practicing, Chigiri kind of came along with it and did it too. Like, Chigiri's always kind of followed Isagi a little bit from the first selection, so I'm not surprised that Isagi inspires Chigiri to evolve. I think that Isagi wanted Chigiri out of the three for his team to begin with, and now that he sees this evolution, he's like, oh, we have to get him on the team. I'm like, oh my god! So I feel like if they win, Chigiri is going to be the one to get picked, which I don't know how I feel about that with Ryo and Kunigami, but I don't know, right? And then the question is, what if they don't win? Are they going to pick Nagi still, or are they going to get Isagi? I don't know. I don't know. But I feel for Ryo. The thing is, Ryo could look at Isagi as inspiration and evolve himself, but instead he's trying to figure out why Nagi chose Isagi over him. And it's like, you can't compare yourself in that way or it's not going to work out, right? And Isagi just trying to break it down. And I'm really glad that at this point early on in the episode, when Isagi's like, they're well balanced, they have good teamwork, he's like, they have no weaknesses. And normally when a character says that, you're like, oh no, they're going to be like, there's no hope, we can't beat them. Isagi doesn't think that way. I love it. Isagi, kind of what he does is that he finds that evolution. He finds it inspiring and stimulating is the word I'm going to use. And I know the snickers as I say this, but it is stimulating. He's like, yes, in the moment. Isagi, he's definitely one that wants to be challenged. And I like that. There's a character in Kuroko's Basketball named Kagami. There's like Kunigami, Kogami from another series I'm watching, and Kagami. So I get their names confused all the time. But Kagami is from Kuroko's Basketball. He's nothing like Isagi except he likes being challenged. And whenever someone stronger than him comes up against him, he constantly is like, I want to match that. I want to be as good as that. You give me 100%, I'm going to give you 110%. That's kind of Kagami's attitude, and I love that about his character. And Isagi is kind of like Kagami in the sense that he's getting to the point where he's confident enough in himself that he's starting to see something stronger than him, and now he gets excited and wants to match it and figure out, how do I make that my own to use on the battlefield? And I love it. And calling it a battlefield, getting in there with Reen, right? So very interesting. But I love that he says, I want to try out my new tools. I can't wait to test this new and improved version of myself against them, this adapted version, and find out how well my team's new chemical reactions work. Like, I like Isagi being excited. Like, that's a lot of fun. And you want your protagonist to be excited to face a challenge, right? So this episode's called Donkey. Donkey. And the question is, who is the ass here? And it's the one with the biggest ass on the team, and that is Barou. Which ever since hearing Barou and hearing them call him, donkey, burro is Spanish for donkey. So every time I see Barou and he started calling people donkey, I'm like, this is oddly ironic. So, okay. But I also like that Isagi is looking at his fields of vision. He's taking what Reen told him about knowing how people's eyes work, and he's looking. It is kind of funny because everybody looks like they have headlights and the headlight vision. The image of Nagi and Chigiri with the strobe light. I'm surprised nobody's not made an edit of the cat with the strobe light effects, laser beams coming out of their eyes. I'm surprised nobody's done that with Blue Lock yet and made it look like a rave. I'm sure someone's edited it to make it look like a rave. If not, y'all need to get on that. He's like, I have to take note of where everyone's looking. Isagi is a genius. There's no way. Because there is a clear difference between a character that just works really, really hard to get to the point where it's natural, like breathing. Here's the thing. Yeah. You have a character like Reen, right? Who my theory now is that he maybe is not a genius. Reen might not be a genius. But there's a difference between practicing until it is natural as breathing, right? Because you have to breathe to survive. So if Reen practiced to the point where kicking a soccer ball is nothing, I can do whatever I want with it. It's breathing to me. That is one thing. That effort and time, it's like time times effort equals growth, right? Is kind of the sports anime math formula if you are a non-prodigy. That is the equivalency here. That's the Oikawa formula. Time times effort equals growth. It may not be immediate. It may take time. You will naturally bloom over time, but it will happen. It is guaranteed. If you put in the time, you put in the effort, there will be growth. Now, to what extent that growth is, well, that's the X factor. You don't really know that. There's other things. Genetics are involved. There's all other things too. But then you have kind of the prodigy formula, which is kind of like the formula is there already. Prodigy stuff is like a proof, right? I hated proofs in geometry. I hated proofs because in a proof, all I remember of proofs in geometry was that you had the answer and you had to show all these steps of how you got there. And I was like, no, I know what the answer is. I can just tell you what it is. And they're like, but what are the steps to get there? And I'm like, why does it matter? I found the answer. And so they drove me crazy. But for prodigies, it's more like a proof. You already know the answer. It's just how do you get to the answer? And show your steps. And what do your steps mean? So it's a slightly different formula, right? And for Isagi to be able to look at the field right now and see this spatial awareness and see people's eyeballs and knowing and being able to take into account everyone's movements, that's not something that you get by time and effort. Like, he's doing this at a rapid rate. It's something that's innately always been there. He's just like a proof finding the steps of tracing and connecting the dots of what he can do with the innate abilities within him and how can he tweak those to change the proof even more. Like, that's kind of the difference I feel between Isagi and Reen. Now, we don't know a lot about Reen. We don't know enough about Reen. My dog is rolling around in the background back there. But the point is, I can only focus on Ruby at this point. She's like in my armpit. But the point is that he's a prodigy, right? He can see the player's movements more clearly and precisely than ever before. And then he just gets gay vision, and it's just a rainbow effect coming from the ball. I do like that it's kind of like this rainbow cosmic effect that ties him and Nagi together. I love that. I love that him and Nagi kind of have this cosmic vibe between one another, which Rayo absolutely despises. And the fact that he sees all of these possibilities, endless possibilities with Nagi that he does not see with Barou. The representation of the pile of skulls with Barou, like the little trail of skulls that were like lining the way, that was such a great imagery. I loved that. And being like, everything is a dead end. Passing to him leads no possibility to a goal because Barou's not going to pass it back to you. No. Meanwhile, we make Nagi like Saturn here. Nagi has infinite. Nagi's like space. There are infinite possibilities. That's the best way to look at it, right? And it's kind of what's cool is seeing Barou be like this king of this mound of corpses, but it's lonely on top. It's lonely on top of the mountain. Meanwhile, out in space, sure, nobody can hear you scream, but there's all these possibilities, right? So I like the visual representation in this episode of how they talk about the goals. And then Rayo, I feel like Rayo is going to be the one to be the undoing of his team. Like right now, they're all getting along really good. It's working out fine. But you can kind of see some of the cracks in the veneer. Like Rayo is getting more and more frustrated that Nagi and Isagi are working so well together. And there's a little bit of a hint there where I could be wrong. There is a little bit of a hint where Rayo is like, Isagi is trying to catch up and match Isagi. Nagi's trying to catch up and match him. So you kind of wonder if Rayo's going to be like, I have to do the same, and maybe he... And he kind of has like a little mini evolution in this episode, a little bit. Not to the level of Chigiri or Isagi, but kind of like a little mini one. So I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see if Rayo ends up being the undoing, or if Isagi is just going to be like the one that saves the team. I don't know. Kunigami was a really good force in this episode, too. Like, he was freaking strong, right? And Nagi can match Chigiri to a point, or was matching him, until Chigiri had his little evolution, right? But Kunigami is enough of a good shot. Like, that shot Kunigami got into the goal, it was really good. Like, the one that got it to be 2-0. And then Nagi and Barou being so different is fascinating to me. Because Nagi's over here like, hey... Look, what's so neat is the contrast of you have Isagi, you have Nagi, who will do anything you ask. It's not that Nagi's adapting, and it's not that Nagi's relinquishing control, but Nagi is he's kind of submissive. He's like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll score the goal. You want me to do it? Okay. And that can kind of work to Nagi's detriment in a way, because we're seeing Isagi kind of adapt to devour his competition and become like them. Nagi just kind of does whatever you tell him to. And there's pros and cons to that. If you're talented enough, then it makes you a good, trustworthy ally that you can rely on in a pinch, maybe. But I feel like Nagi's weakness is that if he doesn't have a distinct plan and doesn't have a goal in mind already, then he can kind of get lost, right? If you don't have something tying you down in space, you just float endlessly, right? Nagi needs an anchor. He needs a satellite. Nagi needs a satellite to revolve around. If he doesn't have one, he just kind of floats around in space and doesn't know what to do. At least that's what it seems like to me. And then there's Barou, and Barou is so stubborn. He is like a donkey. He is stubborn as all get out. I don't know if you all have been around donkeys in your life, but if you raise cattle, a lot of people that raise cattle, they have donkeys. And the point of that is because if you're trying to like tame a cow to, this is going to be the most hillbilly sounding thing ever, but just hear me out for a hot second. When we train cows, you train them to where you can lead them around on a halter, on a lead rope, kind of like a horse. It's weird. But you train them to lead them around. Well, the cows at first don't like that. They're like, no, what are you doing? So a lot of people, we don't do this because donkeys are annoying. But I have lots of friends that raise cows, and they'll have like a donkey, and you tie the cow to the donkey, and when the cow acts up, the donkey literally will kick the cow and be like, stop it. And after a while, the cow will be like, fine, I'll do what you want. Fine, whatever. and will just follow the donkey around. So the donkey is actually used to tame the cow. And eventually the cow will just walk with the donkey and it won't be a big deal. And then the donkey will stop and you've trained the cow to walk with you. And that's how it's done. So donkeys are stubborn and they want to be in control, which is ironic because Barou keeps calling Isagi a donkey, like saying that he's beneath him. But it's like, no, Barou is stubborn like a donkey. He wants to be the one to be in the lead. And that's fine if you can match it, and Barou knows that he can't. That's the crazy thing. He's like, why would I pass it to someone else so they can score? That part made me mad because I was like, Barou, this isn't like the first selection where whoever scores the most is safe. This isn't like that. Now we're trying to like do interpersonal communication. We're trying to find out like, can you work with a team? Can you work with a team while being self-sufficient? And Barou is being a little bit inadequate in both areas. He's not able to be self-sufficient. He is not like, I'll get this on here. He's not like Isagi where he can figure out who to pass to and what to do. Once he gets cornered on the court, he's not been able to do much. He's not self-sufficient and he's not using teamwork. So he can't, collaborate. And so it's kind of what it's doing is it's isolating him. And he's being left out. And that's probably such a contrast to the first selection when he was the one that everybody was passing the ball to because they wanted him to score. It's really cool. I like the idea that Barou has been built up to be this very physically strong character. But at the end of the day, you can be physically strong, but you can't do this alone. Soccer can't be won by yourself. And Barou is going to he's definitely an egoist. For sure. He wants to be the best version of himself. But there is a difference between wanting to be the best striker. There's a difference between that and being the best striker. Right? There's a difference. And that seems rather obvious. But it's like if you were on a team and you are the most confident, best version of yourself, then you don't have to worry about whether you have to pass to somebody or not. You'll figure it out. But Barou does not want to concede the fact that he might have to pass it to someone else. He wants to be the person that doesn't need to pass it. And it's like, well, that's fine if you're capable of doing it, right? And Nagi's like, are you dense? It doesn't matter if we don't win. And he's like, yes, off of my goals. You two need to move so I can score. And that's what Isagi ends up doing. Isagi is like Barou's whole philosophy that Isagi kind of ends up devouring is that you move to where I can score and not be controlled by others. He's like, no, you need to move to where I can score. You need to get on my level. And Isagi finally goes, okay, let's play that game then. Can you keep up? And Barou's not keeping up. And I'm like, it's probably driving him crazy, right? So yeah, and Isagi, I like that Isagi is like, I need to control this team. And then he realizes by the end of it, no, that's not what this is. It's not controlling others. I love this message of this episode. It's not controlling others. It is being in control of yourself to match others. I like that Isagi realizes he's like, instead of me trying to change Barou to fit what I want, that's not going to be good for him. It's not good for me. I need to change myself to match with him. And that's adapting. Adapting is not taking someone's power and controlling it. It's copying that power and controlling it for yourself, not controlling them. And I'm like, yes, like that's such an awesome way to phrase it. I love how this series does it. I also love the idea of Isagi just with the puzzle pieces all around him, trying to figure it out and moving towards the goal. I like the representation of all the skulls with Barou and that it's not going to work. and instead he sees like the rainbow of possibilities and little mini Nagis everywhere. It's great. I love Nagi when he's in the air and he's doing his little death-defying move and he's just like floating like he's anti-gravity. It's amazing. It's great. Chigiri's hair was on point the entire episode. Can we talk about that? He looked great the entire episode. I did like the little blush when Nagi scored and he was like, yeah. And they even make it a little bit shippy where they have little shipper arrows and they're like, Isagi times Nagi. The thing about it is, I feel like, I don't know, I want to multi-ship. I feel like I'm just monopolizing the Bachira and Isagi ship. My thing is, I don't want Bachira to get in another ship with someone else and lose his passion for Isagi. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think Bachira's still going to have a passion for Isagi regardless. But I don't really ship Isagi and Nagi, but it is cute. I think if you ship it, sure, that's fine. I almost want to ship Barou and Isagi just as a fix-it ship to be like, I can fix him. But I'm proven wrong in this episode because that's not the point. It's not supposed to be a fix Barou episode. It's going to be a let's give Barou a taste of his own medicine and make Barou fix himself. That's what it is. Barou has to fix himself. Nobody needs to do it for him. And poor Reo. Reo's like, this is the ship of Isagi and Nagi, these two ships in the night. Like, Reo's just about to have a high speed come apart at any given second in this episode. And I really feel kind of like there's a vulnerability with Barou here because he's like, your play needs to allow me and Nagi the chance to score. We can only make plays if we do it with each other. He's like, I can't create this chemical reaction alone. And Barou's like, no. He's like, I win through my goals. He's like, I'd rather die than play for someone else. And I'm like, and there's a part of you that's like, but Barou, you're going to be on a team if you play for the National League. But this is part of being an egoist. You don't concede to anyone else. You have to be someone that's got so much pride and ego. And Barou kind of calls Isagi out in an interesting way here because Isagi's saying, well, if you pass to me, you can create options for us. And Barou's like, no, if I pass to you, I create options for you, not for me. And it's like, oh, that's it. And he's like, and that might let you score more. And he's like, might isn't good enough. I win how I please and all other options get overruled. And then Isagi's like, well, we're going to lose if we keep doing that. And he's like, fine. He's like, I'd rather lose than change who I am. And Isagi's like, are you kidding me? And then Isagi calls him out saying, you're wrecking your potential. And Barou just gets kind of offended by that. He's like, wrecking my potential, excuse me? And he's like, you're better than this. I teamed up with you because I knew you could be so much more. At this rate, your career ends here. And Barou's just like, excuse me? And he says, watch your mouth. And then he says, with my talents, how am I not winning? The one who's most frustrated with me right now is obviously me. And I like that vulnerability. Barou's like, I know I'm good enough to be doing better. Why am I not evolving? Why am I not doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And I kind of feel bad for him because it's like, you get Barou's perspective. He's like, why should I have to change who I am to match you all? Why can't I be? He's like, why do you guys get to evolve and be stronger and I have to submit to you? Why do I have to do that? Why can't I be the one to evolve and you all pass to me? So I get what he's meaning. He's like, to hell with making the most of each other's play. That's the type of soccer that you want to play. It makes me want to puke. He's like, why do I have to concede who I am? Do what I tell you. That's all I'm hearing, donkey. Yeah, and that's such a good point from Barou. He's like, all you're doing is telling me what to do, and it makes me feel inferior. And then how can I be Japan's next top striker if I'm feeling inferior and playing by your rules? How is that helping me grow? And it's like, yeah, you're not wrong. So it's frustrating because Barou isn't living up to his own expectations and he's being limited, which sucks. And you get that, but it's like, I love the way, and that's when Isagi's like, and he just he mopes off in this gloomy black aura, and he's like, we're both egoists after all. So how am I supposed to? We can only live the way we see fit. This was a really crucial moment for Isagi because Barou's saying, don't think for a second that you can control me. And Isagi's like, oh, because, and I love what that teaches in this moment, because at the start of this series, when we find out Isagi has this spatial awareness, we find out that Isagi can see where all the moves on the chessboard are and all of this, the easy way to think about it would be that Isagi just controls the other players, or that Isagi controls the situation and they do what they tell him to, or he orchestrates the passes and they do as he orchestrates. But that's not what this is. No, what it is that Isagi has to adapt himself to all of those. He has to adapt himself to what's being given to him by his peers, by his teammates. He doesn't control them. He adapts himself to work best alongside them. And that's a big difference. And I hadn't thought of it that way. And it's really, really good. And, Nagi's just like, well, let's forget Barou and just do it on our end. And when Isagi said, why am I so hung up on him? I was like, I mean, I don't blame you. But I like that Isagi's like, is it because I find Barou's situation such a waste? Yeah, because Barou's got talent. He's just not. Barou hasn't figured out his own puzzle. Barou's like, he's stuck there. I imagine that as Isagi has all these puzzle pieces swirling around him cosmically, Barou just takes the puzzle box and goes, and just shakes it and knocks it upside down. He's like, well, how do I put this puzzle together? That's the difference. Isagi is like meticulously putting puzzle pieces together like he's in the Matrix or something, and Barou's like, I don't know what to do. He like becomes Jersey for a hot second. I don't know what to do. I want to put this puzzle together. And then he's behaving like a king when his way isn't working. Again, I compared him to Kageyama, and Wim compared him to Kageyama in their comment. That is very true, because in Haikyuu, what Kageyama finds out is that he needs to find a teammate, Xiaoyu, who lets him be himself and matches him and gives him the space to be the king. And that's kind of what Isagi figures out, sort of, by the end of this. Now, Nagi says if you never admit defeat, you'll never know true frustration. Like, if you just keep up the facade, nothing bad can happen, right? And then Rayo's like, why did Nagi choose a guy like you? I'm like, Rayo is so hung up on this. Nagi is just trying to be friends with Isagi, Rayo. And I love that Isagi's like, what is with this guy? He's annoying. I love that Isagi's like, I don't understand. Why is he so weird? It's wonderful. It's great. And that's when he's like, I don't have any special weapons like you, Chigiri or Kunigami. I'm just this all-around guy who's just good enough to make it work. It's funny that Rayo says he doesn't have any, like, secret weapons, but instead he's just this natural all-around anchor that's holding the team together. And using as utility, he knows how to use Chigiri and Kunigami. He's kind of similar to Isagi, but unlike Isagi, Rayo is not adaptable. Rayo is just an anchor, and he'll anchor that ship to the water. It ain't going nowhere, but it also doesn't have a lot of flexibility. So, Chigiri just looked great in this entire episode. Looked beautiful. And then, man, Kunigami was doing some damage this episode, that's for sure. Even though Chigiri got the evolutionary move at the end. And then Barou, meanwhile, he's like, is it time to give up on Barou? I love when all the puzzle pieces swirl around Isagi, and then they just stop. And it's just like petals, like cherry blossom petals that just stops in midair. Oh, that part was amazing. And then he's like, I'm going to devour Barou. And looks like a Titan while he's doing it. It's very Attack on Titan, right? I also like that Nagi just doesn't question it. Nagi's like, oh, we're doing this now? Cool, sweet, let's go. Nagi is the White Knight. He just lets it happen. And he's like, don't rely on Barou. Don't think about making the most of his play. Instead, devour his play and dominate the field. Because that's Barou's whole thing. Barou's like, I'm going to dominate and be the strongest. And Isagi's like, fine. If I'm not going to rely on him, I'm going to make him work for it. I'm going to make Barou come to me. All gutter and sexual innuendos intended. Yes. So yeah, he's like, I'm gonna make Barou work for it. Because that's what Barou likes to do. He wants to work for it. Fine, I'll make him work for it. I ain't gonna try to woo him anymore. I'm gonna play hard to get and see how he likes it. And Nagi's like, all right, sure. And I love that he just basically makes Barou do the heavy lifting so that he can go in and steal the goal. And the facial expressions that Barou makes from like the halfway point on are absolutely amazing. And Nagi catches on pretty quick. He's like, oh, this is what we're doing. Okay, cool. Like Nagi is really good in terms, Nagi and Reo are both, funny that, are both pretty balanced players in terms of they can kind of get the drift of what's going on fairly quickly and adapt to it. It's not the same adaptability that Isagi has. It's a different kind of adaptability, but it's like, it's a go with the flow and make adjustments. Their adjusting ability is both pretty evenly matched. And then, yeah, he ends up scoring it. It's you. And I love this line. It's probably my favorite line in the whole episode was when Isagi says, no matter how much you knock on the door to someone's heart, you can't change them. That line where he's like, you cannot change others. You can change yourself. That probably is like one of the craziest. I love that. For a sports anime, that's such a great line. It's awesome. Because, yeah, Reo is trying to change Nagi's mind and making him regret joining Isagi, but that's not it. It's like, it's not Reo. Instead of worrying about Isagi and trying to change Nagi's perception of what side he should have picked, change yourself. And that will cause him to regret more than trying to change his mind otherwise. And Isagi's like, I would love to change Barou's mindset. I would love to make Barou understand what I understand, but that's not fair to him. That's not fair to the game itself, and that's not fair to Blue Lock. Instead, I'm going to have to change myself to get better. And Naruhaya is right. That's a really hard thing to do. It's hard to change yourself. Like, it's not easy. And then when he says, watch me, Barou, the darkness on the field that you created, I'm going to devour it. Ah! I love that. He's like, you created this darkness and I'm going to take it and make it my own. I love that. And I'm going to turn it into light. Barou's face, I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. Ah, our boy Isagi. And Barou's like, he used me. He used me to score the goal for himself. Because that's Barou's thing. Barou's thing to Isagi from the beginning was, you're not strong enough to do it on your own. You need me to win. And I want to win using my goals. And now Isagi's like, no, I don't need you. I'll score the goal myself if I have to. Oh, I love it. And Reo just being like the egoist that Nagi Seishiro is chasing after. I'm like, by chasing after, you make it sound like they're going to go run off and elope together. He's like, no, he just wants to be a good competitor like Isagi. Like, come on, Reo. What's Reo going to do about this? Is Reo going to evolve? And then I love that Isagi's like, you know what, Barou? You just keep playing the way you are. You just keep doing you, man. You keep doing you. You do you. You be you. It's fine. You just keep it up and don't drag us down. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm saying don't get in our way, donkey. I love it. He's like, I love that Isagi, who has been thinking that Barou is the strongest player and he's the one that they have to tame. Isagi's like, wait a minute. No, he's not the strongest on the field. I'm the strongest on the field. And me and Nagi are going to win. And Barou, maybe if you keep up, you can get on our level. It's just like that self-confidence that Isagi has in this moment where he's like, no, you just keep up now. Don't drag us down. The role reversal. The self-esteem. It's so freaking good. And he's like, well, who's he calling donkey? And he's like, I'm going to prove to you that the king on this field is me. And it's like, yeah. And Isagi's like, bring it. At this point, I ain't trying to be a king. I'm just trying to win. Everything about Chigiri is gorgeous in this episode. Every time I get to like a screenshot, he looks amazing. So yeah. And then, losing my voice. And then Isagi like going down using those plays with Nagi, and Nagi's like, yes, please. And the field is being dominated by Nagi and Isagi. I love, like, it shows the green coming up with Isagi and the pinkish, like, fairy aura from Nagi, and it creates this, like, dazzling yellow light. The colors don't mix together correctly, but whatever. And then Barou's just like, what the fudge am I supposed to do? And that's when Chigiri decides to evolve as well. I love it. I love Chigiri, like, getting to where he can dribble the ball ahead. And at that point, when the Moe scored the goal, which now it's 4-3, they only need one more goal to win. So, like, the fudge are we doing? What do we do with this? I like that Chigiri scoring the goal doesn't intimidate Isagi. I like that Nagi's like, did he just evolve? And Isagi's like, this is awesome. That smile, that creepy gaze, where he's like an egoist who gets buried before us. And Kunigami's like, what's happening? Can't become the world's next best striker, right? I like that Reo and Kunigami are like, the fudge? And Barou's like, what is happening? Yeah, because Chigiri beat him. Yeah, Isagi is excited. Isagi views this as a moment to watch someone evolve and to match them. And he's like, yes, I want to devour Chigiri next. Ah! Now, so the question's going to be, it's 4-3. 4-3. What do we do about that? Yikes. It's 4-3. So the question is, what do we do? Is Barou going to step it up and evolve as well to get better and match what Isagi's throwing down? I mean, I think Nagi's game, but is Barou going to be able to do it? And is Chigiri going to be the only one that evolves, or is Kunigami and Reo going to evolve? I don't want to make a prediction. It doesn't matter. The episode's already happened. I can't change fate. It's going to happen no matter. I think that Isagi and Nagi and Barou are going to win. And I think they're going to pick Chigiri. Because I think Chigiri is evolving to match what Isagi wants. But that leaves Reo and Kunigami. So maybe Reo and Kunigami will face Raichi and them and win and take Raichi or Gin and then go on forward. Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I'm really curious to see if anybody else from Team Z made it out, because they, in the additional time, we come to find out in the additional time, what do they say there? They're like, it took me ages to clear that stage, where Raichi says, who should I team up with? And Gin is like, no one's here. Everybody's moved on already. And like Naruhaya. So it's like, and Raichi's like, I wouldn't have teamed up with him, so whatever. I feel so bad because Gin doesn't know that Naruhaya's left already. So the thing of it is, Raichi and Gin and Wakima are the last ones from the group, it seems, to be there together. So the question is, did anybody else make it through? Or is it just Raichi and Gin and Kunigami and Chigiri and Isagi and Bachara and Naruhaya? Did the other 5, we don't know about Kon, we don't know about Inagashi, we don't know about Lemon, we don't know about Imamura, aka Becky with the good hair, and who's the other one? The last one that were there. Oh my god. Kon. Who was the other one? We had Raichi. Not Raichi. Yeah, Raichi, Gin, Naruhaya, and then Kunigami. Oh, Isagi. What am I doing with my life? And Isagi, yes. So there's 5. Right? Isagi. Why am I taking this long to know who's here, right? We have Raichi. We have Gin. We have Naruhaya. We have Isagi. We have Bachara. We have Chigiri. We have Kunigami. There's 7 there, right? Then the other 5 that we need to, or 11, there's 4. We only need 4 more to make 11. There's 11 on the team. What am I doing with my life? Done. Math's over. Episode's over. Trying to make 12 players when we only need 11. 3 hours later. So anyway, there's 4 that are unaccounted for that we don't know about yet. Lemon, Imamura, as well as Inagashi, and bless my soul, Cone. So I don't know. I am assuming they'd pick Chigiri, but I'm gonna be really sad if Kunigami and Reo get left behind. I'm gonna be sad, but also if Kunigami and Chigiri and them win, are they still gonna take Nagi, or are they gonna change their mind and take Isagi with them and leave Nagi and Barou behind? I feel like if they leave Barou and Nagi behind, that's gonna be terrifying, because that means that Barou and Nagi have to work together to beat a duo. Neither of them really seem like they would be compatible. They need somebody like Isagi, or do they? Or do they need to figure out what to do without Isagi? There's so many possibilities, right? Right? So many possibilities. But I'm super excited to see what's going to happen next episode. This episode was so hype. And seeing Isagi kind of be a little bit sinister. He's like sinister and gets this like crazy, voracious attitude, but then underneath he's like, do you want to be my harem? It's like, what? So it's great. I love it. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. So I'm excited for episode 18. I don't know about you all, but I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. This was such a hype episode and I loved it. And I can't wait to see, is Barou going to match wits and be able to evolve to get on Isagi's level? Can't believe I'm saying that. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back real soon with more Blue Lock. Peace!